was an idea to bring together a group of remarkable people.
Who are these people?
Authenticity Radio. Stimulating and transparent. Real people and real authentic talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get real.
What are you prepared to do?
Guys, I'm bringing the party to you.
And now, your host, who has the hospitality of a fat and jolly innkeeper, Slade Suitor.
Find a penny and pick it up, and all day long you'll have good luck. Welcome to you. This is Slade Suitor broadcasting from the Authenticity Radio Studios in Barcelona, Spain.
It was the 3rd of June, another sleepy, dusty Delta day.
Leslie Stein is our guest today. She just published the book, Penny Perspectives. Leslie now lives in Las Vegas, Nevada, and as I understand, we both have gray-filled skies, kind of gray days. And this broadcast with Leslie is going to be sun-filled. Leslie, welcome to Authenticity Radio.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Penny Perspectives is such a positive book. There's so many lessons hidden inside your pages. How did you come about writing this book?
Well, the start of this whole thing was something called the Penny Project that came to life in 2007 when one day on my walk home from work, I found a $20 bill laying on the ground. And, you know, of course, what do you do when you find a 20? I do a happy dance. I don't know about anybody else, but I literally did a little happy dance in the crosswalk right there. Decided to go get a pedicure because that costs about $20. And it just got me thinking, how much money do we just toss on a regular basis? Like, are we so unconscious that we're tossing a 20 on the ground and not even noticing it's gone? So this was in December of 2006, and I decided that for 2007, I was going to pick up every piece of money that I found. Nickel, dime, penny, it didn't matter. Whatever I found, I was going to pick it up and keep track of it and see just what I could find, what the year uncovered for me in terms of what was out there.
So the Penny Project was more of a curiosity, and you didn't really set out to write a book then?
Not intentionally at first, I assure you. My only goal was just to satisfy my curiosity about how much I could find in a year, and informally I was hoping to beat the $20 mark, since it was a $20 bill that got me started off. But what I found was, for the first couple of months, I just did it on my own, and I'm a complete dork. So I was tracking every found penny on a spreadsheet. You know, January 4th, 7 cents. January 9th, 12 cents.
So you were doing this in a private sort of way. You weren't going and broadcasting this to everyone that you were picking up pennies.
Yeah, absolutely. Because who tells someone, like, hey, I'm tracking pennies on a spreadsheet? Like, I was afraid that I'd get committed to a loony bin or something. So one day I was walking to work with a coworker, and we passed by a newsstand, and there were 7 pennies on the ground, and I just about lost my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, 7 pennies! And I picked them up, and she had these like wide eyes, and she's looking at me and says, are you okay? Like, do I need to buy your lunch? And I said, no, this is a thing I've been doing to see how much money I could find on the ground. I have a whole spreadsheet. It's a whole thing. And she said, oh, well, that sounds kind of like fun. I walk to work too. Maybe I could find things. Can I join the project? And up until that point, it had never occurred to me that anyone else but me would ever see the spreadsheet or be involved. And so initially I was a little annoyed, like, no, this is my thing. Thankfully, something stopped me from saying that, and I said, yeah, absolutely, I'll find a way to include you. So I created a little column just for her, plus her name was Eleni, which rhymes with penny, so I thought that was cute.
Oh, how fitting that is. Who could say no to that?
So she became the first person to contribute, and her column was called Eleni's Pennies. And she would only give me pennies, never anything bigger. She kept the bigger stuff for herself initially. But then other people found out about it. She told people, I told people, they'd see me picking up pennies, we'd tell the story. And within the next couple of months, we had 15 or so dedicated penny finders in our city and in other cities that would like send the money in, and so it started to become something bigger, and it was definitely not in my plans to do that.
Leslie, what do you think it is that attracted these other people to want to collect pennies with you?
I think it was just my enthusiasm for pennies that people connected with. And the cool thing was people connected in different ways. So sometimes people would say, well, I want to get in on this competition of who can find the most. Mm-hmm. And other people would say, well, can I just give you a one-time donation and be part of it so I'm tracked on the spreadsheet? And that was a whole other thing. Like, gosh, it was initially just found money. What do we do with donations? Like, that's not part of the competition. We have to start a whole other column on the spreadsheet. So it just started shifting, and the energy was so fun, we all just stayed engaged with it. And what happened was we started learning these incredible lessons about things like focus and clarity and being present that really lent themselves, I guess, to becoming stories in a book later on down the road.
Now that sounds authentic. Could you share with us some of your experiences? I know that inside of your book, you've written about becoming more present.
Gosh, it was something that my coach actually pointed out to me. I was so good at finding pennies, right? It became this thing. Like I didn't have a goal when I first started, other than maybe hoping to find $20 across the year. But after 6 months, I took an average of what I found and realized I was finding about 11 cents a day. And so if I didn't find 11 cents during a day, I would actually alter my plans to include something that might help me find pennies. So for instance, I would go to the store and kind of scan the checkout lanes, because you always find money there. People are digging in their pockets or their wallets, and they drop a penny and they don't mind.
So what happens when you see somebody drop a penny? Do you fight after it?
Well, I look to see if they're going to pick it up, and if they don't and they leave it, then I figure finders keepers, right? So I pick it up, I add it to the spreadsheet. So I was really good at finding these pennies and was talking about them quite often. And one of the things I was working on with my coach was that I was just sort of an awkward dater. I wasn't so great at it. And the story I was telling myself was I lived in Washington, D.C. at the time, and the urban myth there is there's no good men in that city. Like, everybody's about who you know and image-based and just not very authentic. And so I just bought into that story. And so one day we were talking about pennies, and he asked, do you believe you'll find pennies when you walk out the door? And I said, absolutely, because I knew it to be true. And he said, do you believe you'll find good men when you walk out the door? And that question just about stopped me in my tracks, because I knew that I didn't believe that. So I wasn't present to all the possibilities and all the amazing people. I was closed off to those and open to the jerks, who were the ones that I seemed to attract. And so that question made me more present to what I wanted instead of what I didn't want.
So are you saying that this set up an expectation to find particular things in your life?
Yeah, and it wasn't so much an expectation, but an intention. It started as an expectation because I knew they were out there, but then it became an intention. It wasn't as important to me to find pennies as it was to be open to finding them. Mm-hmm. So whenever I left the house, I would set an intention of having a great time, which usually included finding some pennies.
So becoming present and setting expectations are things that you have learned along the way of picking up these pennies. Putting them into the form of this book, Penny Perspectives, is very generous of you. Oh, and for our listeners, Leslie is dressed like Abraham Lincoln on the back cover of this book. And she has in her hand a cat who's also dressed like Abraham Lincoln.
Yes, this is true. We apparently are a little obsessed with Lincoln in my house.
How did you get your cat to dress up like Abraham Lincoln? And why did you dress your kitty up as Mr. Lincoln, Mr. President Lincoln?
She's the world's best cat, first of all. She lets me dress her. I also dress her like Wonder Woman sometimes, and I have a Christmas tree outfit for the holidays. So let's just say Shirley is a very lovely cat and lets me dress her up. But that came about because I was working with a woman to design the cover, and she was sending me really beautiful artistic covers, but they just didn't resonate with me as far as the lightness and the humor of what the Penny Project is about. Mm-hmm. And we would send them off to my sister, and she would just, nope, this isn't it. Nope, this isn't it. So one day my mom and I were brainstorming, and I told her about this other book where the woman who wrote it had a little bit of an obsession with taxidermy animals, and she had put a mouse dressed as Shakespeare on the cover of her book. It's called Let's Pretend This Never Happened, and she is just an absolutely hysterical writer, and we were in tears thinking about this taxidermy animal. And then we came to the idea of dressing Shirley as Abraham Lincoln, and we're just literally side-splitting laughter. And so it just became this. I texted my best friend, who's like Martha Stewart, and I said, could you make my cat a Lincoln outfit? By the way, wouldn't suck if I had one to match. And a few minutes later, I wrote her again. It was a text message, and I said, just kidding about one for me. Bought it on Amazon. Still need one for the cat. Not kidding. And so, thankfully, she's been my best friend for a long time and has a good sense of humor. Made the outfit, came over, and we took pictures of the two of us dressed as Lincoln and just cracked up. And we thought, that's the heart of this project. It's about presence and focus and clarity, but also joy. Like, just laugh. And the stuff you want in life seems to come a whole lot easier when you're in that mindset.
Yeah, you have a chapter about inconvenient joy. It makes me curious. What is it about joy that you found to be inconvenient?
That's a great question, and people don't often pair those two words up. And I know I didn't until one particular day. I was walking home, and I had just gone to the grocery store, and everything seemed to be on sale that I needed, and so I doubled up on everything. And I had about a 6-block walk from the store back to my house. Well, of course, you're carrying these 2 or 3 heavy bags, and I would see a penny, and being me, I can't pass up a penny. So I would set down the bags, pick up the penny, put it in my pocket, do myself up with the bags, move another block down the road, find 2 more pennies, pick them up, repeat, And it occurred to me that this was a shift. Prior to that day, I would have actually been annoyed. I would have been thinking to myself, are you kidding me? I'm going to find a penny now, right now, when I have the groceries. Fantastic. Awesome. Great. And I wouldn't have been really happy about it. And it occurred to me that day, I was like, wow, you know what? A lot of times in life, we're literally carrying around, this day I was literally carrying around physical baggage, but we're always carrying around some kind of baggage, emotional or just frustrations from our day. And are we willing to set them down to pick up that, for me it was an actual penny, but we have metaphorical joy that comes into our life all the time, but we're so tightly holding on to our baggage that we're not willing to set it down to embrace what's in front of us.
What a great lesson.
Oh, I was just going to say, maybe a lot of times it's because it doesn't look exactly like we thought it would look, or it doesn't come exactly when we thought it would come. I think timing is a big issue with people. The joy comes later than they want, or too soon, and they're not ready. And what I've learned is, if it's joy and you want it, just set down your baggage and embrace it, and you'll figure out the rest as you go.
Wow, great lessons from pennies.
All from pennies.
I understand that before you got into writing the book, it started with writing a blog with an invitation from a friend of yours.
Yeah, well, actually, it was funny. I started a blog sometime at the end of that first year of penny finding, and just to share some of the stories, because we were cracking ourselves up with the ways that we would come up with to find pennies, or the situations where we would encounter them. So I was sharing my stories and the stories of other collectors, and I had kind of accumulated some stories there. And then one day I met this woman who had a blog with a pretty large audience, and we were meeting for coffee for the first time, and I found 16 cents by the register, as I am apt to do pretty much anywhere I go. And I picked them up, I got all excited, and she said, what is this all about? And I told her some of the main lessons I've learned from doing this. And she said, hey, would you write a guest blog for my website? And I thought, wow, people actually want to hear this story? Sure. So I wrote for her blog, and it got tons of comments, and that became the introduction to the book, that blog post. And so it was the encouragement of, A, my friends who started me to write encouraged me to start that initial blog, and then B, my friend Tia, who said, why don't you write for my blog? And then got it out in front of a new audience that made me think, maybe there's a market for these stories after all.
And now it's in a book form.
Now it's in a book.
Now, before we share the information on how to get a hold of your books, I would like to offer our listeners a little insight